Welcome back to my channel, Melanated Gods of Earth. Brothers and sisters, host MODISE The High King. And if you're new to my channel and you enjoy the vibe, head on over to my page, consider smashing the subscribe, let the algorithm know what's good with the thumbs up. If you enjoy the video, smash the share, let other like-minded souls know that we're out here. On today's video, family, I'd like to continue talking more about the resource problems we seem to be facing as an African continent since the dawn of colonialism and slavery, when the white man discovered our divine blessings beneath our feet. To maintain his lifestyle, he has perpetuated neo-colonial practices. In this day and age, they continue to cause havoc all across our continent. In the name of their first world lifestyles, we have been forced to mine resources in order to maintain their lifestyles. It's been tragic. It's been tragic for those of us who... Hold up. I don't know why I didn't do this already. It's been tragic for those who have had to live in all these mineral-rich areas, because they would do anything and everything in order to maintain an iron grip on resources that do not belong to them. And I would like to touch on two particular clips. One starting with the cobalt mining, how cobalt mining became a disaster for the Congolese community. Then I will share, Then I will share a couple of clips that were making the rounds on TikTok as of late, because the conversation has been happening once again, because colonialism, bruh, it's a nightmare. It's a nightmare. As well as South African minister says she was called out of her name over Russia, because Westerners want to have double standards on everything, don't they? Let's begin with the cobalt mining crisis. This one was what? 1 month ago. DW News, which is a German outlet.
To the Democratic Republic of Congo, where the southern mining town of Kolwezi sits on huge reserves of cobalt, a crucial metal for making rechargeable batteries that power electric vehicles, the mobile phones that we use, and also laptops. But as the world is moving away from fossil fuels, there's concern that the growing demand for cobalt is affecting people at its main source. Now, in a recent report, Amnesty International details alleged forced evictions and human rights abuses targeting communities in the DRC as mining companies expand their operations. Now, in a moment, I'll be speaking to Candi Oim, Amnesty's researcher. But first, here are some of her findings.
Brick by brick, Aimon Mousson has been demolishing his own home. He moved in here nearly 30 years ago. Now he's having to rebuild out on the edge of town, after being forcibly evicted by the operator of the vast open cast mine at the end of his street. Our expectation was that we'd receive compensation, because the law says if you relocate someone, the person should live in a better place than where they were. But unfortunately, it's practically the opposite. Kolwezi is a community that's living on the edge, and the edge keeps coming closer as the cobalt mine consumes everything in its path.
Oh Lord, look at that, brah. Look at that royal family. That there's an atrocity. A crime against the motherland and her people. They come, they extract, they exploit, and brutalize the land because they don't have to live here. And they condemn us to the chaos. The toxins that they leave behind in the mining sector. This is what it means for international corporations to be out here doing what they do. And then our colonized education system has raised a bunch of business peoples who don't hesitate to allow international foreign investors to come through. In the face of things like this, we are still allow them to come to Africa and have security over resources to keep their industries up and alive. That's crazy to me. That's insanity to me. What a tragedy. What a tragedy.
In some cases, entire neighborhoods have literally been wiped off the map. Cobalt is a rare resource that exists only in a few places on the planet. Half of all known global reserves are under the busy streets and farmlands of Kolwezi. From mobile phones to electric cars, cobalt is everywhere, making DRC's reserves sought after. And outside interests and the pursuit of profit mean one thing: human suffering. Amnesty had harrowing testimony. Kanini Masaka used to live in the nearby village of Mukumbi. She says her family and most of their community were brutally evicted from their homes by the Congolese Republican Guard.
We wondered if it was war or something. From that moment, you know, soldiers with guns and us, villagers in the fields. We were so afraid as they burned down the houses.
And it gets off by military forces patrolling the nearby mine.
I fell ill, very ill. My entire body was in pain and my head really hurt. I've never experienced anything like that. Such things have never happened. They are not paying us our money. They need to pay our money so we can bring our children back to school.
Forecasts say that the global demand for cobalt could increase sixfold by 2040. DRC's rare resources may be able to save the world from climate catastrophe, but for the people of Kolwezi, cobalt looks like a curse, not a blessing.
Might have to clip that little bit out. It sounded horrible. Very tragic. Sounds like something the community guideline violations might have a problem with.
For more on this, let's bring in Candi Oim from Amnesty International. She's lead researcher into these particular findings. Hello, Candi. Now, the pursuit of these raw materials is creating a horrible situation for locals. Tell us more about the major findings from your report.
So, hi Eddie, thank you for having me. We have interviewed about 130 people who have been forcibly evicted from their homes and farmland to make way for large industrial mining projects that extract cobalt and copper. And what's very...
Keep in mind, family, follow the money before you condemn or judge anyone. Understand who benefits from the chaos. They keep saying tech industries who manufacture cell phones, batteries, everything electric, are the ones who ultimately finance these atrocities. They're governments who create policies that empower them to come to the African continent and do things like this. And not just the African continent, everywhere on earth there are mineral resources. There's always someone who's being evicted or being brutalized at the hands of somebody. There are always militias and mercenaries. That's what neo-colonialism is. That's the difference between classic colonialism and neo-colonialism. Classic colonialism was upfront and about, in your face. White folks were proud. Europeans were proud about doing it. But neo-colonialism has tricked everyone into thinking that it's innocent. It's no longer happening anymore. No one has to think about where their cell phones come from, how they came to be. So Western peoples get to live in a dream. We're no longer seeing British soldiers up front, but instead we're seeing the most corrupt among us, the most desperate among us, taking resources or taking money from the West in order to attack and devastate people. It's crazy. So I judge not the hand that does the act, but the mind that cooked up the idea and did the influencing.
Clear to us is that there's a gap in state action to make sure that the rights of residents of Kolwezi, which is known as the World Cobalt Capital, are protected, and the interest of frontline communities is kept at the center of the Congolese government policies in the mining sector, and that the companies who we've been in touch with really have theory and practice when it comes to management of this project that really doesn't line up.
I mean, you had your sample size, but give us a sense of how widespread this problem is.
I mean, this is we describe it in the report as a systemic issue because thousands and thousands of people are concerned. Many of the concessions that we visited are home to, 40,000 plus people. Kolwezi itself is a city that is 500,000 people, and the issue really spreads across the Lualaba province, the Haut-Katanga, and is something that affects people who live all across the Copper Belt, which is a region that stretches all the way from southern DRC to northern Zambia.
I mean, they just came from the outside and they dug a pit in the middle of nowhere and they just kept going because they didn't give a fuck. They didn't care. They just wanted what they want.
I mean, we understand some people are being kicked out of their homes. I mean, according to your report, people are being kicked out of their homes without compensation. So my question is, where do they live and how are they surviving?
Well, I think what's striking is that many have sought out support from provincial government authorities, national government authorities. They share their grievances with the companies and really haven't been heard. I have in mind, in particular, the case of Shemaf and the informal settlement of Mukumbi. Shemaf is a company that's 100% owned by an entity based in the UAE. And what people told us is that in November 2016, the village was raided by the Congolese military, the Republican Guard, which is a particular unit of the military in charge of protecting the president. And that informal settlement that grew over the years and was home to about, between 1,500 and 3,000 people, overnight was burned down. I met with a child who was 2.5 years old when the incident happened, who has scars from, neck to ankle. They were kicked out of their homes sort of without any due process, with extreme violence. It took years and many months of advocacy for the community to get any sort of attention from the authorities. The company accepted to pay a settlement in 2019, which was $1.5 million. But if you subdivide it by the number of residents, that means that I've met people who've received as little as $200, $300 for the loss of their home and their entire community overnight.
Right, very tragic situation there. But as the world makes its energy transition, demand for cobalt is only going to increase. Again, that was in your report. How do you see the situation evolve in the next few years?
Well, I think it's evident that the world really urgently needs to move away from fossil fuel dependency. And
at whose expense?
At
whose expense? Just look at that. Oh, my Lord. Just look at that, fam. At whose expense? Because that's what they don't think. That's what these Greenpeace energy peoples do not consider when they're out there running around saying we should be transitioning from fossil fuels to green energy. Where is it going to come from? Where are the batteries going to come from? The raw materials going to come from? Look at this. But they want to be out there causing havoc in the streets. At whose expense must we transition the world from fossil fuels? You cannot exchange one crisis for another. Perpetuate an atrocity in the process. Also, you can be green and clean, emission-free.
States decarbonize the global economy, the demand for these strategic minerals is only going to increase, and that increase has already had very serious repercussions on the ground. So we're just trying to raise a red flag because it's for sure not just in the DRC but many other places in the world where you find some of these minerals, whether it's cobalt, copper, lithium, and others. People live near or on the resources that are so essential and critical to the world's energy transition. So I think there's going to be an acceleration for the demand of these minerals, and both consumers, industrials, and
I'm sorry, I just had to look at that one more time. Brothers and sisters all day, every day, condemned. They unalive our heads of state who did not agree with the West, who told them outright that no, enough is enough. Replaced them with puppet regimes, sympathetic to the West, taking money on the side. Finance atrocities and militia groups who are desperate and as poor as these men, I reckon, but delinquent enough, post-colonially traumatized enough, they will pick up a rifle and do as they were taught to do by the colonizer. Because that's what the colonizer does, is it not? He commits an atrocity, and then when he gets tired, he puts the whip in your hand and he makes you whoop your brother. And he puts that habit in your people. And then when he leaves back to Europe, he's left a broken world and a broken system and broken societies that continue to harm each other. And this to sustain the West. Nah.
Both, consumers, industrials, and, states should really be mindful of human rights abuses that can happen at the point of extraction and take that into account when they think about their supply chains.
Right. Candi Oim, researcher with Amnesty.
Crimes against humanity. So the West can keep doing what it does best, which is lord the fact that it's a first world lifestyle, everything is amazing and advanced, when in reality, all is what it is at the expense of us. The resource curse, they say. Now, some of the clips that are making their rounds on the internet. I don't remember which one I found first between the two. Let's start with that one. More views, must be older.
We are all complicit in one of the deadliest conflicts that history has ever seen. And I'm going to explain why. Now, the Democratic Republic of Congo is one of the most mineral-rich countries in the entire world. However, it's one of the most economically deprived.
When she says we, she means peoples in the West. That's the tragedy. I want African Americans and Afro everyone, British, Afro Canadian, Afro Caribbean, Afro everybody, to please separate yourselves from evil. Separate yourselves from evil. Do not fall into the trap of thinking that you are equally as responsible for this. You would not be in the situation had you not been taken into captivity, enslaved by these devils who keep creating these circumstances that we languish in. Lords, you will sooner condemn yourself to hell, thinking you're being righteous. Take it easy, family. Separate yourselves from evil.
The mineral which is sourced here is coltan, which is used to power technology. If you have a phone, coltan's in it. A car, coltan. There's not a lot you can do without coltan. Now, while this should make Congo one of the richest countries in the world, it's not, because the industry here has been exploited by Western countries and neighbours such as Rwanda. Now, an estimated 1 million...
Rwanda, of course, having been financed by the French.
...dollars is lost every year due to smuggling from Rwanda. Rwanda backs an organisation called the M23, which has been responsible for the deaths of millions of Congolese people. The Rwandan army has deployed troops all over eastern Congo to help strengthen these M23 rebels and increase their hold over the coltan-producing regions in Congo. Now, considering this is one of the deadliest conflicts in history, there is a startling lack of information online. Why? Because the West largely helps to fund these. They collaborate with the Rwandan government, and they also send weapons to rebel forces in Congo. This is because if they keep the country unstable, they keep military insurgency going, the country is weakened, and a weakened country can be exploited. A united country can't. Now, in the past 100 years, Congo has seen the biggest loss of life in the world, and no one is talking about it. Now, I won't be able to explain everything that's been happening in the country in 100 years in one video, so this will be a series, but I thought, let me start from the top with Western colonization. Now, in 1885, King Leopold of Belgium literally just seized the country as his personal possession. Now, while
King Leopold was the
countries
worst.
returning Africa into their colonies, he took Congo as a personal region. Now, backed with money given by the Belgian government, King Leopold said that he was going to bring civilization to Congo. Now, for reference, Congo is the largest country in what they call sub-Saharan Africa. It's about the size of the entirety of Western Europe. Now, the atrocities in Congo were so bad that other European governments were literally disgusted. And in 1908, due to pressure from other European governments, King Leopold turned over the colony to the government of Belgium. But during these years, torture was rife. If people didn't meet their work quotas, they would literally have a hand or foot amputated. And Belgium is now famous for selling chocolate hands.
Mm-hmm.
Where do you think that idea came from?
And we're gonna talk about that family. We're gonna go in on the Euro-Western cultures and habits that are literally as a consequence of the fact that they were bloodthirsty colonizers. The things that they did, the atrocities they committed, they made it into a fetish. Holiday treats. Eating black hands. Never mind blackface, bruv. Eating black hands. In the shape of... Man.
Estimated 15 million people died during King Leopold's rule over Congo. It's considered one of the biggest mass genocides in history. You're all complicit in one of the...
Imagine that. One European unalived 15 million Africans. This is what we're talking about on this channel. We conscientize ourselves and the people who don't already know, who are too westernized and too captured by the system to not see any further than the trappings of Western lifestyle. All of that came at a price, an atrocious price. A tragic price.
So hopefully by now you've seen one of my videos or someone else's video talking about the millions of deaths that have been happening in Congo and one of the worst humanitarian crises the world's ever seen. Now I want to tell you about a court case that is an absolutely landmark court case and should be everywhere, but it's been completely silenced. I want you to boost this video, use the hashtag that I've started, Turn Your Eyes to Congo, get this word out there and don't let them kind of censor this message. So in 2019, the human rights group International Rights Advocate brought a case to the US courts on behalf of 14 Congolese families. This was against 5 major companies: Alphabet, Apple, Dell, Microsoft and Tesla. These families said that these companies were no...
Let's get that real quick. Do you hear that one more time?
Microsoft and Tesla. These
what?
Alphabet, Apple, Dell, 5 major companies: Alphabet, Apple, Dell, Microsoft and Tesla. These families said that these...
So now Elon Musk is running around out there saying he's saving the world with green energy technology. Where does he get it from? If the company has been implicated in these atrocities, beneficiation of atrocities in the Congo Basin, and we're supposed to celebrate these tech industries for what? For what?
These companies were knowingly aiding and abetting the forced labor in the Democratic Republic of Congo. These companies rely on cobalt sourced in Congo to power things like laptops, phones. Technology basically is reliant on the deaths of these people. This was the first ever legal case of its kind, and the fact that no one has reported on it, the information online is so limited. We know why, because they're suppressing the news. And yeah, you can hate on TikTok so much and say it's rotting people's brain and you spend too much time on it. However, be honest with yourself. If you didn't watch this TikTok video today, would you have known about this? Now, in 2021, a Washington DC court struck down these claims and saying that there was not enough of a link between the deaths and the defendants. That the minors' injuries could not be traced back. There was not enough of a casual relationship. Now, while the human rights group does plan to appeal, you should know that as of 2023 September, these companies were expanding the mines in Congo. This has led to the forced eviction of communities. It's led in rape, it's led in death. And M23, a rebel group backed by the Rwandan government, has been helping in this mission. At least $1 billion is lost from Congo every year due to smuggling of essential minerals from Congo to Rwanda. This reminds me of the colonial era in Congo, where the Belgian government would recruit African people to work in their kind of private armies against...
After being harmed severely, conditioned. This, keep in mind, was after centuries of slavery and colonization. So the conditioning that took place to make the African subservient, that's what it means to be a colonial subject. In service of the British Crown, in service of the Belgian Crown, in service of the Netherlands, in service of France. When they say francophone, when they say anglophone, when they say... That's what they mean. Who are your colonizers? Who are your masters?
be led by European army generals, and they'd be given better benefits than the people in Congo. Now, why do I say that? Because Rwanda and their M23 rebels are being used to take these people away from their land to build more mines. While they do this, they also recruit people in Congo to join them on this mission. But who is the person benefiting the most from this? Countries in the West. And there's a reason why they get countries like Rwanda to do their dirty work. Because then they can say there's no causal link between us and the deaths of the people at these mines.
Of course, the history between Rwanda and the countries that ultimately created the genocide in 1994 was no accident. It didn't just fall out the sky. All of that itself had a pre-conditioning. Systems that preconditioned the country to where it is today. Capable of being manipulated by the West and in service of the West. Say what you will. We all saw the stories where the British government is trying to sign a deal with Rwanda to exchange migrants. Rwanda would take a fee and they would accept in exchange migrants who the British government didn't want in their land anymore for whatever reason. And there are more clips on that, but yeah, I think I can share a couple more. So of course, more and more black people in the West are coming to the realization, because that's how information isolation functions. A lady over here was feeling lost and powerless.
It has been brought to my attention that there are 2 other genocides happening right now. To my knowledge, to what I've just seen, I was just, because I'm trying to go through all of my tags. I am. I know so many of you have tagged me in so many videos, and I'm trying to go through them. But I just saw this video talking about the Congo genocide that's happening, where there's been over 6 million victims. And then there's another genocide apparently happening in Sudan. I haven't heard of either one of these. And as much love and just phenomenal humanity that I've seen coming forward in support of Palestine, I know that I haven't heard of the Congo and Sudan genocides because the victims are black and from Africa. And at this point, I try to remain positive. I try to keep everything lighthearted, but what do I do? What do I do?
At the same time, folks must understand that the West has a vested interest in keeping y'all in the dark. They have a vested interest in keeping y'all in the dark. Because black resources, whether it's physical labor or mental output or resources for technology, they rely on every last bit of it. Where would they be without the music industry? Without black hip hop stars, where would they be? Without the Will Smiths, where would they be? Nowhere. They'd be lost. If, God forbid, Will Smith and Idris Elba were to put their resources and acting skills behind empowering African actors, building studios on the continent, ooh, Lord.
How do I help everyone? What do I do? What can I do for Congo? What can I do for Sudan? What companies are involved? Like, y'all please tell me, and I will. I'll push it. But these leaders in these countries make me sick.
Of course, it makes no sense to get upset at African leaders, because between them being puppet regimes for the West is clear. Everybody has a paycheck. Then you also have to appreciate how far the West has gone to prove to these African leaders that if you do anything, we will unalive you just like every other African leader before you who tried to speak up. Patrice Lumumba. Thomas Nyerere. The list goes on, fam. War crime after war crime.
Throughout the whole history of slavery, I mean, I'm going back centuries, never in human history has there been more suffering.
Hold up, before I touch on that, let's start with this one. Oh, it was images. Okay. I should have watched the whole video before I liked it, I suppose. Would have known.
Throughout the whole history of slavery, I mean, I'm going back centuries, never in human history has there been more suffering that generated more profit and was linked to the lives of more people around the world ever in history than what's happening in the Congo right now. And the reason I say that is that the cobalt that's being mined in the Congo is in every single lithium-ion rechargeable battery manufactured in the world today. Every smartphone, every tablet, every laptop, and crucially, every electric vehicle. So you and I, we can't function on a day-to-day basis without cobalt, and 3/4 of the supply is coming out of the Congo, and it's being mined in appalling, heart-wrenching, dangerous conditions. So that's why people need to know, because by and large the world doesn't know what's happening in the Congo.
And that's what neo-colonialism is in a nutshell. It has rearranged the system to trick everyone into thinking everything is over, when in reality a new veil has been pulled over people's eyes, and they continue to exploit and extract, and they hide everything that they do behind the beneficiation of everybody else. So no one asks questions. Everyone wants to think that technology in the West is just the way it is because life is amazing, right? Wrong. To be a Western person is to add to the chaos, whether you know it or not. Whether you know it or not. I talk a lot of trash about the West. Why? Because all this time we have all been collectively happy, taking advantage of a destabilized African country, being able to afford our mineral resources at dirt cheap prices, because your economic hitmen plunged our economies into oblivion, cursing our men and women, unaliving our heads of state, replacing them with puppet regimes, paying their salaries on the side, all to maintain your military-industrial complex, to maintain your tech industries. So unless you're prepared to boycott Tesla, forget about saving the world through electric vehicles, because that's been through our experience. Forget your next Apple upgrade. Forget your next Xbox. Tell your Department of Defense to sacrifice contracts with these corporations. Tell NATO to shut down. There's no such thing as a UN peacekeeper. All of y'all are occupying force. That's the nature of the beast. It's vicious, it's cruel, it's violent, and it will go as far as necessary to maintain an iron grip on our resources so that y'all can have creature comforts. That's my latest post on the TikTok. And on top of that, royal family, to bring this video in for a close, let's have a look to see what the sister with the curly braids has to say in regards to what our minister in South Africa has been going through. Now, I've seen a couple of these videos before, obviously. A lot has been happening in regards to how the world has been related to South Africa as of late. And anyone who speaks truth to power is on the chopping block. There's a target on their back. And the latest, of course, is our beloved minister. And it's always incredible to hear a perspective from those who have a hyper focus on the African continent, like the Africa Diaspora News Channel. Because ultimately, it's going to take every single one of us in this game to emancipate the people, the motherland and her people, to rearrange our resources to benefit our people, to build our own tech industries. I've been covering this plenty on this channel. We've been talking about the conversation. Any attempt on our resources will be considered an act of war, because of the desires of our former colonizers, who will do whatever it takes. They will do whatever it takes. Maintain their lifestyles, they will do what it takes. Let us continue.
Peace, family. Vicky Dillard here for African Diaspora News Channel. Thank you so much for tuning in. Be sure to give the broadcast a big thumbs up, and share. Thank you so very much. You help us to be a solidified, unified, global Black voice when you do that, because it lets other folks know that we're here. And when they tune in and when they support, beloved, we are a strong counter voice against the powers that shouldn't be. And that is because of you. Thank you so much. Family, I have been listening to this most profound, fiery speech from the great Dr. Naledi Pandor, who is the Minister of International Relations. She deals with foreign affairs for South Africa. I want you to listen to this brief clip of something that she shared during her address at the Dilemmas of Humanity conference in South Africa. Watch this.
The fact that I have to say I haven't had an opportunity to watch the whole speech. I think I should.
I've been called all kinds of names because I refused to call Russia an occupying power of Ukraine. I've always objected to double standards. These type of double standards are the result of a global system which is skewed in favor of the powerful, to the detriment of those fighting for their rights and self-determination.
Now, did you hear what she said? She said she was called all types of names because she refused, against the opposition, obviously, of world pressure, global pressure, geopolitical pressure, to call Russia an occupying force in Ukraine. Beloved, there's so much misinformation that's out there in the world that so many people around the planet are not even aware that prior to the escalation of the warfare between Ukraine and Russia, that Russia was already in the early stages in peace talks with Ukraine, and that Ukraine had actually, Zelensky had already signed off on peace agreements, but when he came to the United States, among others, rejected it. How many people know that? How many people know that long before this mostly 2022 into the 2023 year escalation of warfare, battle, and loss of life, money, resources, and its ripple effects on the global stage because of energy reasons, because of the grain, and so many other geopolitical factors.
And now European countries are scrambling for energy, trying to come to Africa to get that pipeline going, that gas pipeline from Nigeria through Niger, through Algeria, into France. So again, they're trying to get us, the resource curse. The resource curse. And we've been covering that plenty on our channel. Plenty. And we'll keep going.
How many of us know, as is written here in this piece by Robert Perry from Consortium News, I'm reading from a piece from 2015. How many of us knew that years and years ago, in 2014, let me read this excerpt from this 2015 piece. It says at the time, Assistant Secretary of State for European Affairs, Victoria Nuland. How many of y'all know who Victoria?
She was out trying to get in with that Niger situation. And she wasn't given the time of day. They wouldn't give her the time of day.
Karen Nuland is. I threw in the Karen part. Let me read it again. Assistant Secretary of State for European Affairs, Victoria Nuland, that was her title then, was the, quote, mastermind behind the February 22, 2014, quote, unquote, regime change in Ukraine, plotting the overthrow of the democratically elected government of President Viktor Yanukovych while convincing the ever-gullible U.S. mainstream media that the coup wasn't really a coup, but a victory for democracy. Not only that, family, and I'm quoting here from this article, Assistant Secretary of State for European Affairs, Victoria Nuland, who pushed for the Ukraine coup and helped pick the post-coup leaders. Many people don't know that this has been an ongoing battle of the United States involved in her mess-making and coup-making behaviors. But we're seeing right now the just uprisings and revolutions, specifically throughout the Sahel, where you got the United States coming in there with France and other Western actors waving their fingers in their faces and using their bully pulpits to try to tell somebody about not having coups. But because America is sneaky with it, she does it covertly and in a clandestine manner, she tends to get away with it.
Hear that? So that ties into the topic of how they unalive our heads of state and replace them with puppet regimes.
Because the masses of the people are unaware of the goings on behind the scenes. I bring this up in the context of Dr. Pander's statement that she was called all kinds of names from members of the global actors because she refused to call Russia an occupying force. I'm trying to remind us, how dare anybody do that when the United States of America is credibly alleged to have been involved in unjust coups, specifically in Ukraine, long before the 2021-2022 skirmishes into 2023.
And all across the African continent. There was a speech one time where they said that they were mystified at the fact that that the United States is the one who keeps training these peoples in Africa who keep running these coups or revolution, depending on how you see things. I personally believe that if they're removing a puppet regime, it's a revolution. Of course, it's a tragedy if it turns out that they are just wanting to be in charge, but that's really the case these days. These days, the speeches that are coming out of these regions, as followed swiftly by other African leaders, is that enough is enough, no more exploiting our resources, benefit the West. If we cannot process these resources here, that's that. No more African resources are going to be leaving the continent. As they did another video the other day where they banned the export of natural gas. We should ban the export of uranium. Ban the export of cobalt and coltan, all these things. Every last one of them. Ban, ban, ban. Because we need to establish our industries.
I want us to be reminded of the credible evidence that's been put out there that show and that states, that claims that the United States and one of her Western partners were actually involved in the sabotage, the terrorist attack of Russia's Nord Stream 1, Nord Stream 2 energy pipelines. I would imagine that the great diplomat, Dr. Pander, and her government and president were very well aware of the fact of the mess making of the United States. I don't know how many of you all have seen my back-to-back coverage on South Africa, where the United States erroneously, libelously accused South Africa of shipping arms to Russia. And when the United States made that statement, her diplomat to South Africa, Mr. Briggity, said that he would put that allegation, that assertion on his life.
He swore on his life. Our currency tanked and it's still in the bottom of the barrel.
Only for the investigation to show that it wasn't true. And before the investigation was done, he had already given a half-hearted apology, which lets us know he had lied to the world. But because of that misinformation, the Rand and other things, other areas in South Africa were negatively affected by those allegations. Are y'all hearing me? So because America can't bully South Africa and her Western, mostly Western actors, they call her out of her name to pressure her.
Amandla.
And to pressure them.
Power.
To call Russia an occupying force. I also did some back-to-back coverage recently on the U.S. Foreign Affairs Committee holding a hearing recently here in the United States about their bilateral relationship with South Africa. They said some of the most outlandish thing in that hours-long hearing.
You shared that clip here
where
too.
They disrespected the ANC. They complained about possible upcoming legislations and policies to justly and rightly remove land from the Boers to the blacks there. They talked about BRICS. They accused them of trying to help de-dollarize America. They brought up China and Russia. Then they brought up the ways that they are funding South Africa, and had the nerve to tell South Africa that she needed to prioritize their relationship with America over their relationship with Russia.
It's an abusive relationship. It's a toxic relationship with the U.S. No offense to all of y'all over there. I'll keep saying separate from evil.
They even brought up the money that they give for AIDS in South Africa as if they were waiving that as a means of trapping them, trying to frame them. Do y'all hear me? That is absolutely diabolical. Family, let me tell you something. It can seem like that because America is said to be the most powerful country in the world. And I live here.
It was.
We call out these things because it is our hope that America will course correct. We bring up these things to try to scream to America to get out of the way so that she doesn't destroy herself.
America did not hesitate to support Israel in its genocide against the Palestinians. Right? They are the ones who are constantly behind every atrocity on earth, one way or another. So they're addicted to their way of life, built on the backs of slaves, founded on genocide of the indigenous, built on the backs of slaves. To this day, they would rather pay all that money that they should be paying in reparations, give it to Ukraine, give it to Israel, and fund all these terror groups in these regions in order to justify, oh, you need a US base in your country in order to keep you safe from terrorists. The same ones that you pay for, CIA.
But she doubles down in her rebellion, just like it's been written about the heart of Pharaoh. Some of you all don't know that when you're reading about Pharaoh in the text, you're not reading about Pharaoh, you're reading about yourself. I'm going to be discussing the fact that we're the upcoming new rulers, those of us that they consider to be nobodies, the least of these, the least educated folks that they say have a record, people that they've labeled as nobody, those that they say is not educated enough, those that they don't believe are credentialed, those that the establishment hasn't appointed. It's our time. I'm going to be discussing this and how to...
It's our time indeed, royal family. Royal family, it is our time indeed. Because whether they like it or not, they are on their way out. They're on their way out. If you haven't subscribed already, royal family, enjoy the vibe of the channel. Make sure you smash that gray button. And if you enjoyed the video, speaking of which, smash the thumbs up. Let the algorithm know what's good. Let other like-minded souls know that we're out here with the share. as we continue to emancipate ourselves, our people, our continent from our historic abusers, so that we may be free and live in our true divinity and blessings as given to us by the source. Before humanity was ever even a concept, these things were written. And we've been covering a lot of these videos on this channel in regards to Africa's mineral resources and how the West will rely on them. Among them was a man who outright admitted that they need Africa's resources in order to green energy transition. If you haven't watched that clip, you make sure you go look it up. As always, thank you for joining. Thank you for watching. Appreciate you, family. And I'll see you in the next one. Stay royal, stay dangerous. Peace.